The next speaker will be Louise Seaward from the University College of London. She will speak about the Bentham Edition, which actually started in the 50s, but since several years it is one of the most popular and most successful crowdsourcing projects in Great Britain or United Kingdom. And Louise is historian with an interest in 18th century France and the history of the book. She works as a research associate at the Bentham project at the University College London, and she is coordinator of Transcribe Bentham, a scholarly crowdsourcing initiative to transcribe the writings of the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham, 1748 to 1832, so nearly Goethe's years. Okay, we are looking forward.
Thanks, Gunter, and thanks to the organiser of the conference for having me present today. So my talk's going to be about the users of Transcribe Bentham. So it's called The Crowd, the Volunteers and the Supertranscribers, building and supporting an online user community for the Bentham Edition. So since 2010, the Bentham project at University College London has been supported by a hard-working community of volunteers. With Transcribe Bentham, our efforts to involve the public in the production of a scholarly edition have helped to disseminate the results of our research outside the confines of academia and helped to make Bentham's own writings more accessible to people. But engaging with the volunteer community has not been without its challenges. Today I want to talk about our experience of drawing on the work of volunteers, how we support the users that we currently have, and how we hope to encourage more people to take part in Transcribe Bentham in the future. So the Bentham project is responsible for editing the writings of the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham. Bentham was born in 1748, and by the time he died in 1832, he'd written on a huge range of subjects, including legal theory, crime and punishment, democratic reform, education, religion, and sex. His most notable contribution to philosophical thought was his role in formulating the doctrine of utilitarianism. In one of his earliest published writings, he said that it is the greatest happiness of the greatest number, which is the measure of right and wrong. Bentham was also able to ensure that he remained a subject of curiosity by using his will to declare how his body should be preserved and displayed after his death. So his body now sits in the corridor at University College London, free for anyone to visit and take a selfie with. So the Bentham project seeks to recognise and explore Bentham's enormous impact on philosophical thought. Bentham's works were first published together between 1838 and 1843, but this first edition was incomplete and poorly edited. So the Bentham project was founded in 1958 with the intention of producing a new scholarly edition of Bentham's published writings and his unpublished manuscripts. The project has completed 31 volumes to date, and the final edition is expected to comprise 80 books. So for decades, the work of the Bentham project was primarily confined to a small group of expert scholars. This changed in 2010 with the launch of Transcribe Bentham. We had a short-term grant from the Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK to allow us to test whether untrained volunteers could complete tasks usually undertaken by trained researchers. We're happy to report that this experiment proved successful and that collaboration with the public is now an integral part of the work of the Bentham project. Over the past 5 years, our volunteers have transcribed close to 15,000 manuscript pages at a high level of accuracy. The digitisation of Bentham's papers is ongoing, and volunteers will soon have access to every one of the some 75,000 manuscript pages of Bentham material that's held at University College London and the British Library. So the digital preservation of Bentham's work is also an important legacy of Transcribe Bentham. Users can access these digitised manuscripts at the transcription desk. This is a platform constructed by our colleagues at University of London Computer Centre on the basis of a media wiki framework. So it's an open source collaborative software that's also familiar to the public for people that use Wikipedia. So once users register for an account, they can browse the manuscripts for a specific date or topic, or simply pick a random page and start transcribing. So there are many other crowdsourcing projects which allow volunteers to make a contribution to research. Most famously, the Zooniverse platform has attracted more than 1 million users by hosting an array of citizen science projects, such as finding fossils, counting galaxies, or more recently, transcribing the papers of famous artists. But Transcribe Bentham is notable because it asks users to undertake a particularly difficult task. Transcribers first have to decipher Bentham's handwriting, which becomes increasingly legible in his later years as his sight was fading. They also have to deal with the revisions that Bentham made to his papers, where words are added, deleted and changed in complex sequences. And we can see a couple of examples there, transcripts that volunteers have to deal with. Volunteers then have to encode their transcripts using TEI markup, which is the standard format for presenting electronic texts. So the users tag the features of the manuscript, such as the paragraphs, marginalia, headings, line breaks, additions and deletions using this TEI toolbar. The use of TEI means that these transcripts can be stored, read and searched electronically, and it also enhances the likelihood of their preservation by ensuring that they can be converted easily into different formats. So once users finished and submitted a transcript, every transcript is checked by someone working at the Bentham project. Editors need to check that the text has been accurately transcribed and that the TEI markup has been applied appropriately. If we're satisfied that no further improvements could be made by further crowdsourcing, we then lock the manuscript. This editorial check is subjective but necessary. It ensures that these transcripts form a suitable basis for our editorial work at the Bentham project. It allows us to measure the rate of transcription, how many transcribers are working on, and also allows us to give individual transcribers feedback on how they're doing. So these locked transcripts are converted into XML files, stored on a shared drive, and then uploaded to an open access digital repository. Since the project began, volunteers have worked on an average of 54 transcripts every week. But this rate has increased in recent years as we've uploaded new material to our transcription desk. So as an example, in November 2015, users were producing an average of 81 transcripts per week. So this compares favourably with a single researcher who could probably transcribe 50 to 60 pages across the same period. So by providing guidance, support and recognition, we hope to keep our current transcribers working on Transcribe Bentham and continue to draw in new people to the project. So the transcription desk has a number of features designed to support our existing users. Transcribers can access guidelines on the process of transcribing and applying TEI markup. We have examples of Bentham's handwriting for them to look at, and also external links to paleography tutorials. The surveys that we've conducted amongst our users suggest that they're interested in history, philosophy, Bentham, and they like the feeling that they're contributing to a scholarly project. In order to maintain this interest, it's vital that these users receive feedback, both about their individual contributions and about the project more generally. So every time a transcript has been checked, we leave a message on their user page. Weekly blog posts keep our users up to date with what's happening with the project, as do tweets and Facebook updates. And the work of the transcribers will be credited in forthcoming volumes of the Bentham's collected works. Crowston and Fagnow's work on virtual collaborations has suggested that there are 3 levels of contribution to such projects: initial, sustained and meta. Transcribe Bentham does not yet have highly engaged meta contributors, but it does have a committed core of contributors at the second level, sustained or Supertranscribers. So the majority of transcription on Transcribe Bentham has been carried out by around 26 volunteers. These Supertranscribers have transcribed 96% of the finished transcripts. So this striking statistic demonstrates how far Transcribe Bentham is dependent on a small cluster of users. And because of this, we need to make improvements to Transcribe Bentham, which will keep the existing transcribers happy and draw in new participants. Uploading new and interesting material to the transcription desk is one way we've been able to do this in the past. For example, Bentham's personal correspondence has generated a lot of interest, and our transcribers really enjoy transcribing that material. When we ask our users what stops them from transcribing more, they cite the difficulty of Bentham's handwriting, the complexity of applying the TI markup, and a lack of time available to contribute to the project. So one strand of the READ project will focus on making Transcribe Bentham simpler for the users. We are in the process of developing a what you see is what you get toolbar to replace the TI toolbar, and this will mean that the TI will be hidden from the users. So it'd be much simpler for them to use Transcribe Bentham and for us to check the transcripts. READ will also be working on an e-learning app which will help transcribers to understand Bentham's handwriting. And in collaboration with our colleagues in the Transcriptorium project, the forerunner to the READ project, we have already begun to integrate handwritten text recognition technology into Transcribe Bentham. The University of London Computer Centre has developed a client called TSX, which allows users to transcribe Bentham with the assistance of HTR technology. Again, this is an open source platform which can be used and adapted by other institutions. Users can ask TSX to suggest individual words or lines, or provide an auto-generated version of an entire manuscript page, which they would then need to correct. The READ project will focus on improving the accuracy of these word predictions and enhancing the functionality of the TSX interface. So for us, HTR technology has the potential to facilitate the more regular participation of new and existing users who are hesitant about reading Bentham's handwriting. And it could also be good for our engaged Supertranscribers, leaving them free to tackle the really difficult manuscripts that they find an interesting challenge, but which are too complex for the computer to handle at this moment in time. So Bentham requested that his manuscripts be publicly displayed alongside his auto icon. With thanks to the efforts of our volunteers, Transcribe Bentham is able to fulfil his wish to make his manuscripts more accessible. Images and transcripts are preserved and shared in an open access repository. Transcribe Bentham helps to spread awareness of Bentham's ideas and allows the public to take part in a scholarly research project. As an example, a cookbook of Bentham's own recipes has just been produced on the basis of transcripts submitted by volunteers. It can also be said that crowdsourcing is good for the efficiency of the Bentham project. Without the existence of Transcribe Bentham, the entirety of Bentham's papers would not be transcribed until at least 2081. If the current rate of transcription continues, we could finish the task by 2035. Still far away, but a bit closer. So we have many reasons to be pleased with the development of Transcribe Bentham, but I just want to underline as a closing point that running a crowdsourcing project is not easy. Careful management is required to recruit and retain volunteers. You also need sufficient funding for digitisation, staff time and technical work. Nevertheless, we are hopeful that with Transcribe Bentham we've shown the viability of crowdsourcing quite a complex task, and that it's possible to integrate the public into a very long-standing scholarly research project. And we look forward to seeing our connection with our volunteers deepen as we head into the READ project. Thanks very much.